Howdy everybody, I'm Steve and I am living for a living. I am a full-time RVer and welcome to my home. One of the things that I run into when I am out RVing, especially when I am boondocking, when there is no power pedestal, or when I just feel adventurous and don't want to plug into the pedestal, is I don't have in my RV anything at all to do my DC charging stuff. Charge my cell phones, charge my laptops, charge my tablets, that kind of stuff. I've got plenty of 120 volt AC ports, but this RV did not come with a single USB outlet or even a cigarette lighter plug, which is kind of weird. This is a 2018 Salem made by Forest River, and my previous model was a 2017 also made by Forest River. The 2017 had a USB-A port, which was only 5 volts, which came from the 90s, and a cigarette lighter plug, so I could plug in a modern USB-C charger. This one, being a year newer, made by the same company, doesn't have any of those things. But I've got a solution for that. I've got this EBL power station right here that has all of those ports that I need. And one of these allows me to plug in a cigarette lighter plug in case I wanted to power a variety of 12 volt things like a 12 volt refrigerator, which are super popular right now. Let's take a look at this. I'm gonna put this on the workbench inside because this screen is a little hard to read. It is readable indoors and it is an appropriate amount of light for having this thing in your bedroom at night with your cell phones plugged into it. But daylight, it kind of struggles. You can kind of work with it. That's like the only drawback I have seen on this thing. Without further ado, let's get over to the bench and take a look at it. Obviously we've got the power, we've got the light, but here is where these things needed a little bit of a close-up, a little bit more attention to detail. We have two DC out ports. These are 5521 barrel jacks. And the connector that goes into those, you guys know what these things look like. It kind of looks like that. And the reason why it kind of looks like that is because they provide you one of these adapters to plug into it. So even though it says 14 volts, this is going to be 14 volts max if you are also charging at the exact same time as you're withdrawing. But your car cigarette lighter plug puts out 12 volts, which is actually 14 volts when the engine is on and the alternator is running. So you can take this power station and plug this thing in, and now you can plug all of your car stuff in. As an example, if these 4 USB ports weren't enough, you can get a USB adapter to go in there, the same kind you would use in your car. So that takes care of those first 2 ports. The second 2 ports are USB QC 3.0, which is why they are the blue kind. And the QC 3.0, let's see if I can find it on here, is a little bit more than your typical USB spec. Typical USB spec from way back in the day was 5 volts and almost no amps at all. But these blue ports here can do 5 volts 3 amps, they can do 9 volts 2 amps, they can do 12 volts 1.5 amps, and they can put out a maximum of 18 watts. It has all that information on the bottom of it so that you don't have to keep carrying the manual around with you everywhere you go. So these are pretty cool. You can power quite a lot of things off of this, including a couple of different kinds of computers can be powered off of these ports here specifically. A lot more computers can be powered off of this set here. This is USB-C, which is 100 watts max between the 2 ports. So you can do 100 and 0, or you can do 50 and 50, or you can do 20 and 80, or whatever the case may be. So you can charge your cell phone on one and you can power your laptop on the other. And if you are a ham radio guy like I am, you can get a special cable for this, which I will link in the description down below, to power your low power QRP radios off of this. But this is not a radio channel, so we got to talk about what you can do with that USB-C port. The output on that is 5 volts 3 amps, 9 volts 3 amps, 12 volts 3 amps, so higher voltage on the USB-C port 3 amps than on the USB-A port 1.5 amps. It can also do 15 volts 3 amps and 20 volts 5 amps, 100 watts max. Together, between all of these ports right here, all 6 of these ports right here, you can do a maximum of 160 watts out, which is really cool. It is rated at 150 watts, but it's got that, extra 10 watts there as a little bit of a surge, a little bit of a buffer for you, which is pretty nice. So now we have to get down to charging this thing because it doesn't have like a wall plug outlet. It doesn't have a 120 volt AC mains plug on it. And you charge this thing up through USB-C. And the way that this thing works on the USB-C input, let me see if I can find it on here so I don't get it wrong. You can charge this with 5 volts 3 amps, that'll take forever. 9 volts 3 amps, that'll take forever. 12 volts 3 amps, you're getting better, you're getting warmer. 15 volts 3 amps, or 20 volts 5 amps. 20 volts 5 amps is where this thing really lights up. And as a result of being able to plug in 20 volts 5 amps worth of input, I have a solar panel that I can plug into this, and I will show you that. We'll take this thing outside. But one of the problems with filming outside is this screen here is not easy to see outside. That's the back, that's the light on the back, which does regular on, and it does strobe, and then it does help me. And this is actually SOS in Morse code. Very, very slowly. There, we finally finished sending 3 letters in Morse code. I can read this, but I have to look at it absolutely directly in order to see the screen. I mean, even if I tilt it this way for you guys, the camera picks it up a little bit better than if it is straight on, because the camera focuses more on the glare than it does on the screen. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to film this thing inside. What it's telling me is that there is no input right now, which is true. The battery is 56% charged, which is that little center state of charge wheel. And then it is 0 watts output. So what I want to do is I want to start plugging some stuff into this and see what it's going to do. Let me get a cable. Okay, so what I have here is a fully charged set of earbuds, something fairly typical that we might have when we go out. And because it's fully charged, it's going to give me a pretty interesting rating. So this thing comes on and tells me that it's charging. And then the screen tells me that there's 0 watts out because there is 0 charge demand on this. So let's change this over to something that, again, we all have with us. This is my Samsung Galaxy S24. I will plug it in properly, and it lights up and tells me that it's doing the fast charging. That's that specific color, and it's 82% charged. So we're actually going to be putting some juice into this. And this thing says that we're putting in 25 watts. So those are 2 really good examples. Now let's go a little bit farther. And this here is my MacBook Pro. This is a 2024 model, and we will plug this thing in. This normally charges with a USB-C charger, but it has MagSafe, but it will still charge off a regular USB-C. So I have plugged it in, and it's telling me 79% charged, and it's starting to run the screensaver, and then it goes back to power out. And 0 watts out on the display. And the reason for that is because these modern computers have this feature where they will only charge up to 80% in order to save battery life. If I go up to the top, there is an option to charge to full now because the battery is on hold. Let's hit that charge to full now button. And then we look at the battery pack, 18 watts, 20 watts. All right, it took it a minute to get in there. The laptop operating system still says it's not charging, but we're putting out 30 watts. All right, now it says it's charging. All right, it's starting to hover around 60 watts. And this is the supplied charging brick, which has way too small of writing. This is a 70 watt charger. This is the charging brick that came with the laptop. The other thing that gets super easy to show you guys indoors is on my desk mat here, each of these squares is a ½ inch. So if I line this thing up, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 inches wide. 1, 2, 3, 4 inches tall. And I believe it's also going to be 4 inches deep. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so it's 4 by 4 by 7. So that's actually a pretty good compact size. And I like this handle here on the side. I can just kind of carry it, and it's kind of at that angle. So this is not quite backpackable size. I have seen some backpackable size units, but the power that this thing has inside is 12.8 volts rated at 12 amp hours or 153.6 watt hours. And that's where this becomes pretty interesting. This is a 12 volt battery inside, a 12 amp hour battery inside, and it has all of these plugs. So you're going to be able to charge your phone quite a few times. You're going to be able to charge your laptop quite a few times. You're going to be able to plug in any of your USB or DC powered toys and use them or charge them quite a few times. So this is actually going to come in handy. Let's see how much this thing weighs. Let's get the scale on, get it zeroed out, put our friend the battery on. A little under 4 pounds. So that's not a bad weight for 12 amp hours worth of battery and all of the added stuff that goes into it. Let's get this thing outside in the sun and see what those solar panels can do. So an optional accessory that you can get with this is a solar panel, so you can charge it up when you are boondocking, off-grid, overlanding, whatever your case may be. And that solar panel will plug directly into that USB port, and it folds up nice and flat so you can put it inside your truck. And it actually looks pretty spiffy too. Let's take a look at it. You have this really nice carrying handle up here. You have the traditional leg stands that you get with super Velcro, wow, to stand it up and aim it at the sun properly. It comes with a nice little bag for all of the accessories. We'll show you that in a second. But one of the other cool things about this is that it is magnetic. So it'll keep itself shut. And then it has grommets in the corners, on all 4 corners on the end. There aren't any in the middle. I can understand why they didn't put them there to kind of conserve space, but there aren't any in the middle, so you might need to think about that when you were hanging it. But you'll be able to hang this thing up off of like a roof rack or something if you wanted to aim it to the sun that way. Let's get this thing set up and plugged in. Actually, before we get it plugged in, I promised I'd show you what's in the accessory bag, and I forgot to do that. So let's get that knocked out of the way real quick. You get a couple of adapters to plug into a couple of different things. And again, these solar panels try to give you as much power as they possibly can. So I would be careful as to what you plug in and whether or not you're getting the appropriate voltage out of this, because it could be not a very bright and sunny day and you might get 12 volts, or it could be a very ridiculously sunny day and you might get what we call VOC, voltage open circuit, which one of the cool things about this is it is actually listed on here. So this thing won't go above 20 volts. It says max load voltage is 20 volts. However, the open circuit voltage is 23.85. So if you were to dead short this thing, it would give you almost 24 volts right away. So if you're plugging this thing into a couple $1,000 laptop that's rated at 20 volts and that battery gets full, this is where you have to worry. And this is where a solar charge controller might save your bacon. So I would look into that. And one of the cool things is that you can use this solar panel to plug into the power station here, and this will put out USB regulated power. So it will do the 20 volts, 5 amps to charge the battery, and it will fix this 23.85 volt issue. So we'll get to that in just a second. That is the adapters and why you might want to be careful with them. This is your power cable from your solar panels, which is nice. It's got MC4 on one side. This is the typical waterproof solar panel connections that you get. These are not necessarily guaranteed to be positive and negative. They could be positive and negative in that direction, so you have to be careful with your polarization. But this is an EBL solar panel, and we're going to plug it into an EBL battery, so the supplied cable should do the trick just fine. On the other end of this cable, it winds up being a Y cable. You get Anderson power poles, which are my personal favorite for 12 volt connectivity, and then you get this DC barrel jack. And this is also interesting because this thing's going to have 20 volts present on these guys. And so what I like to do is I like to take this red boot off and put a yellow boot on, so I know that it is solar and could be any voltage coming off of this plug. And yellow is a warning for me to go do something. And yellow is kind of the color of the sun too. So that takes care of your getting the power out of the panel and into the thing. Get rid of those. And then this here is the hardwired connection from the panel, and it terminates in MC4 connectors, both male and female there. And now I can get it set up for you. All right, I have my power cable out of the bag. I've got the bag zipped back up again. I'm going to unfold these, but first I'm going to take the leg out so that I know which direction she's going to land when I unfold her. And then we'll just pivot it right up on those legs and point it at the sun. And we are good to go. In the box with the battery pack, they give you this really interesting adapter, and I was looking for it in the solar bag and didn't find it, and I was kind of worried, and then I found it inside of the battery pack. And what you get is 5521 on one side and USB-C on the other side. And this is the thing that you need. Don't lose this, or that solar panel won't plug in to that battery pack. Let's go get it plugged in. Male to female, nice little click. Male to female, nice little click. And then here is that Y cable that has the 5521 and the Anderson power pole connector on it. So I'm going to take that adapter that they gave us and plug that in to there. And then we're going to plug this thing in to the battery pack. And if you took this and you plugged it right into this DC port, this is an out-only port, so it wouldn't work. You might try feeding the sun its energy back to it, and it should automatically start charging. And you can't see this, and I have trouble seeing this outside. And we're getting 32 watts in from the solar panel. All right, let's see what I can do about getting this solar panel oriented to the sun a little bit better. I built with it a little bit more. The most I was able to get out of it in today's solar conditions is 44 watts. That's not too bad at all. And one of the reasons why that's not a bad number for a 100-watt panel has to do with a lot of factors. The temperature of the day, the amount of charge in the battery, the state of charge in the battery. The closer the battery gets to full, the harder it is to put more energy into it. The amount of sunlight that you're getting, all kinds of different stuff goes into that. So I'm not going to complain about that. Let's take a look, because there's one more cool thing I want to show you. One of the really neat things about this bag here is that I don't need to carry the owner's manual around with me, because all of the information I need to know in order to be safe and sound is inside. It says use it in sunny weather and it's happy, partly cloudy and it's not happy, and rainy, it's extremely unhappy. So obviously it's not waterproof. This is the ESP100, so if I needed to look up online any information about it, there it is. Peak power, which is kind of what I was talking about, is 100 watts. It's a monocrystalline silicon cell panel. The conversion rate is 23%. This thing, like most solar panels, can only take about 25% of the sun's energy and convert it into electricity. And it will run from minus 20 degrees Celsius to 60 degrees Celsius. And then this here is where it gets to be interesting, because you need to know this, like I was talking about earlier about plugging a laptop directly directly into it. You don't want to do that. But you also need to know this for plugging in a solar charge controller. You need to know what its load voltage is. Some charge controllers can only do 12 volts, and if you give it 20, it would be a problem. Same thing with amperage, and the interface is MC4. I can tell that by looking because I've done this enough, but there is your vital information that you need so you don't blow up other things. I like that it's written in there, and it's pretty thick paint, so it'll be hard to get off of there, especially because it is protected most of the time being inside. All right, that actually worked out better than I thought it would. I like the size, I like the shape, I like the weight. It will work for my needs, and it is smaller than the power station that I was using before, which means two things. One, it won't take up as much space when I'm not using it, and two, because it's smaller, it won't take as long to charge as the other one. The other one that I have is a 300, and this is a 150. So twice as fast to charge. The solar panels are also pretty good. I like that it's got the Anderson power pole built into it already, because that works with all the rest of my solar equipment that I have been sharing with you on the channel. And then it also has that DC out so that I can plug it into those kinds of charge controllers, or I can use the adapter that came with the power supply to plug into this. This power supply also comes with a USB cable, so you can plug it into your USB-C. It's USB-C on both sides, so it is definitely USB-C charging, but it does not come with a 120 volt AC wall wart charging adapter. It's kind of the same thing with your modern cell phones. They don't come with the charging bricks anymore. So I will leave a link in the description down below for the power station, for the solar panel, and for a charging brick for you, just in case you need any more information. In the meantime, I have a video on a nice compact solar charge controller that would fit inside that bag and make this the ultimate getaway to be able to charge the batteries on the tongue of your RV and charge this power station and keep everything safe. I'll see you over there.